My hand was shaking, just a little, as I held the phone to my ear. I didn't want to call her, not really, but I felt like I was running out of options, running out of air. Mom answered on the second ring, her voice immediately warm. Kevin? Everything all right, sweetie? And just hearing that familiar sound, it almost made me crack. I cleared my throat, trying to sound normal, like I wasn't sitting in the utility room, pressed against the washing machine, whispering, Hey, Mom? Yeah, everything's fine. Just, wanted to check in. It was a lie, a thin one, and she probably knew it, but she played along. She always did. I could hear Amelia moving around in the living room, the clinking of a glass, the distinct way she sighed when she was irritated. The sound traveled right through the thin drywall, straight into my chest. It felt like my life had been reduced to these furtive phone calls, these stolen moments of something resembling peace before the next wave hit. It had been building for weeks, months even, this pressure, this unshakable feeling that the ground beneath us was just gone. Is everything all right with Amelia? Mom asked, her tone softening, almost cautious. She'd always liked Amelia right from the start. Said she had a good sparkle in her eyes. I didn't know what sparkle she'd see now. I opened my mouth to say something, anything about the job stress, about the house, about the endless string of arguments that left me feeling hollowed out. But then the door creaked open. Amelia was standing there, framed in the doorway, her arms crossed, eyes narrowed. Not angry, not yet, but with that look, that quiet, assessing stare that made my stomach clench. Who are you talking to? She asked, her voice flat. Not a question, really, more of a statement, a challenge. I felt a flush creep up my neck. I really, really didn't want this right now. Not in front of Mom, even if Mom was only on the other end of the line. It's just Mom, honey. I was just checking in, you know? I tried to keep my voice light, casual, but the words felt like dust in my mouth. Amelia didn't move. She just stood there, watching me. I could feel Mom's silent presence on the phone, an invisible witness to the scene. It was humiliating, this feeling of being caught, even though I hadn't done anything wrong. We'd been married for 7 years, Amelia and I. Almost 8, actually, come November. I'm 36, she's 35. We built a life. A good one, or so I thought. This house, the dog, the plans we had for kids. It all felt so solid, so real, for so long. Now, everything felt like it was teetering on the edge of a cliff, and I was just trying to keep it from falling, piece by piece, but she wasn't making it easy. None of this was easy. Amelia pushed off the doorframe, taking a step closer, her gaze fixed on the phone in my hand. Is everything all right, Kevin? She repeated, but this time her voice had a sharp edge to it. I didn't answer right away, just stared at her, then back at the phone, then back at her. This wasn't how things were supposed to be. This wasn't us. I knew, deep down, that whatever was happening, it was bigger than a bad week, bigger than a rough patch. It felt like something fundamental had broken, and I didn't have a clue how to fix it. My chest felt tight, like someone had wrapped a band around it. I could still hear Mom's faint voice asking, Kevin? Are you still there? But I couldn't form the words. I just looked at my wife, standing there, waiting. I just looked at my wife, standing there, waiting. And in that moment, for whatever reason, my mind flashed back to the very first time I saw her. It felt like a lifetime ago, a different world entirely. Not this tense, silent standoff in our utility room, but a crowded house party on South Congress Avenue, one of those sweltering Austin nights back in early spring of 2014. My buddy, Julian, was having a housewarming. I was 27 then, still pretty awkward, still trying to find my footing after moving from Dallas. Amelia was there with a mutual acquaintance, and she just radiated. She had this laugh that cut through the noise, not in an annoying way, but in a way that just drew you in. I remember she was wearing a bright yellow sundress, and her dark hair was pulled up in a messy bun. She was telling a story about her cat, a Maine Coon named Gus, and how he'd once tried to hunt a drone out of the sky. Everyone around her was captivated. I, of course, was too shy to just walk up. I hovered near the snack table, nursing a Lone Star, probably looking like a lost puppy. Julian, bless his heart, noticed me eyeing her and dragged me over. Amelia, this is Kevin. Kevin? Amelia. He's a software guy, super smart. He meant well, but I felt my face flush. Amelia, though, just smiled. A genuinely warm, open smile. Software guy, huh? You look more like a contemplating the meaning of life guy. And that was it. We talked for hours that night, mostly about ridiculous things, like the best taco trucks in Austin and whether pineapples belong on pizza. I found out she worked in PR for a small tech startup, loved hiking, and had a surprisingly dark sense of humor that perfectly matched my own quiet sarcasm. We exchanged numbers, and I remember feeling this buzzing energy, something I hadn't felt before. My world, which had been pretty predictable, suddenly felt like it had a new, vibrant color splashed all over it. Our first real date was a week later. We went to that little Thai place on Burnett Road, the one with the string lights everywhere. We talked about our families, our dreams, the kind of deep, eager conversations you have when you're convinced you found something special. I was struck by how fiercely passionate she was about everything she believed in. She had this conviction, this certainty that I admired. I, on the other hand, was more of a wait-and-see kind of person. She was the fire. I was the steady earth. It just seemed to fit perfectly. We fell in love fast, the kind of head-over-heels, all-consuming love that makes you forget everything else. Every weekend was an adventure. We'd drive out to Canyon Lake, hike in the Greenbelt, spend hours just wandering through South Austin, hand in hand. We moved in together about a year and a half later into a small 2-bedroom bungalow in Bolden Creek. Our routines were easy. I'd be up first, making coffee, and she'd emerge, usually humming some indie song, ready to tackle the day. We'd leave for our respective jobs, me driving up Mopac to my office downtown, her heading towards the Domain. Evenings were for cooking, often Thai or something with pasta, sometimes just ordering pizza and binging a show. We'd talk about our days, the annoyances at work, the small victories. She'd bounce ideas off me for her campaigns, and I'd listen, even if I didn't always get the nuances of PR, and offer my logical, structured perspective. It felt like home, truly. Like this was it. This was my person. Looking back now, I can see the little cracks, the faint whispers of what was to come, but at the time, I just rationalized them away. Amelia was intense, yes. Sometimes she'd get incredibly focused on an idea, almost obsessive, to the point where she'd shut out everything else. I saw it as dedication, a sign of her drive. If things didn't go her way, or if I disagreed too strongly, she could get incredibly frustrated, a flash of anger that would disappear as quickly as it came. I'd tell myself, she's just passionate. She cares a lot. Or she's had a tough day at work. Once I remember we were planning a weekend trip to Big Bend, and I suggested a different route than the one she'd meticulously mapped out. She shut down immediately, went silent for an hour, then accused me of not trusting her judgment. I apologized, of course, just to smooth things over. Said I was just offering an alternative, not criticizing. And she brightened up just as quickly, kissing my forehead, telling me she knew I loved her and was just trying to help. There was also a subtle possessiveness. Not in a jealous way about other people, but about our time, our plans. If I made plans with Julian or my brother Daniel without consulting her first, she'd get quiet, a little withdrawn, until I felt guilty and recentered our schedule around her. I saw it as her wanting to spend more time with me, a sign of how much she valued our connection. We were always us, a unit. I honestly just thought that was how strong relationships worked. You put each other first, always. It never felt like a prison then, not really. Just like priority. And I was happy to make her my priority. I believed truly, with all my heart, that we were building something unbreakable. The idea that this person, this Amelia, standing in my utility room could be the same woman from that Austin party. That warm, laughing, vibrant woman felt impossible. But the phone was still in my hand, my mom still faintly on the line, and Amelia was still standing there waiting for me to answer. Amelia was still standing there waiting for me to answer. I finally managed to croak out, "Mom, I gotta go. I'll call you back later, okay?" I didn't wait for her response. Just ended the call, the quick click of the button feeling incredibly loud in the quiet room. Amelia didn't say anything right away. She just stared at me, then at the phone, then back to my face. Her expression was unreadable, which was almost worse than her being outright angry. "Everything okay?" I asked, trying to fill the silence. It felt like walking on eggshells, this whole situation. She finally spoke, her voice low. "Why were you whispering, Kevin? What's so secret that you have to hide in here to talk to your mother?" I felt a surge of frustration, but I pushed it down. I wasn't whispering. And I wasn't hiding. I just came in here because it's quieter. You know, Mom likes to talk. It was a weak explanation, even to my own ears. She just shook her head, a small, dismissive gesture that spoke volumes. Right. And she usually calls at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday because I didn't have a good answer for that. She didn't press it, though. Just turned and walked out of the room, leaving me alone with the hum of the fridge and the sudden, oppressive silence. It was like that a lot lately. These small, cutting remarks, the unspoken accusations, the way she'd withdraw emotionally, leaving me to flounder and guess at what I'd done wrong. Things had really started to turn around 2 years ago, when Amelia got passed over for a promotion she'd been absolutely sure she was getting. She'd worked herself ragged for it, putting in 60-hour weeks, canceling plans, eating dinner at her desk. Her boss, a woman named Sharon, ended up giving it to a new hire, someone from out of state. Amelia was devastated and furious. I tried to comfort her, told her it wasn't fair, that she deserved it, but she just spiraled. She started saying that Sharon had it out for her, that everyone at the company was against her, that they just wanted to hold her back. I watched her energy shift, this vibrant, ambitious woman I married, slowly morph into someone consumed by resentment and suspicion. Incident 1. The holiday party. This was probably the first really big flag, looking back. It was December of that year, and her company had their annual holiday party at a swanky hotel downtown. I went with her, genuinely trying to be supportive. She was still bitter about the promotion, but she promised me she'd be civil. We were about an hour in when I saw her cornering Sharon near the bar. I couldn't hear everything, but Amelia's voice was getting louder, sharper. I saw Sharon's shoulders hunch, her face tighten. I moved closer, already feeling that familiar clench in my gut. When I got within earshot, Amelia was saying, "And it's just so clear, Sharon, that you have no respect for my contributions. You just decided I wasn't good enough, didn't you? After all the late nights, all the sacrifices." Sharon tried to interrupt. "Amelia, this isn't the place." But Amelia just talked over her. "No, this is the place. Everyone should know how you treat your employees, how you string them along and then just discard them." Sharon finally just walked away, her face bright red, leaving Amelia fuming. I tried to pull Amelia aside. "Honey, that was really not okay. You can't talk to your boss like that." She whirled on me, her eyes blazing. "You think I'm wrong? You think I'm being unreasonable? She deserved it, Kevin. She's a snake." Her voice was low, but so intense, it made me step back, the look in her eyes. It wasn't the Amelia I knew. It was a cold, hard rage that was completely alien. I tried to calm her, but she just wouldn't hear it. The rest of the night was a blur of me trying to make apologies to colleagues, and Amelia glaring at me from across the room, feeling completely betrayed that I wasn't unequivocally on her side. Incident 2. My brother Daniel. My brother Daniel lives in Houston, about a 2.5-hour drive away, He's my closest confidant, always has been. He and Amelia had gotten along great for years, but after the promotion incident, things started to sour. Daniel, being Daniel, is very straightforward. He'd occasionally try to offer Amelia advice, telling her she should maybe try to look for another job, or that dwelling on the past wasn't healthy. I knew he was just trying to help, but Amelia took it as a personal attack. He thinks I'm weak, Kevin. He thinks I'm a failure, she'd say, even after he'd gone out of his way to tell her how talented she was. One Thanksgiving, about a year ago, we were at my parents' house in Dallas. Daniel was there with his wife, Chloe. We were all sitting around the table after dinner, and Daniel was talking about a new project at his firm. Amelia, out of nowhere, said, "Oh, so you're actually doing things that matter, Daniel. Unlike some of us stuck in dead-end jobs because of incompetent bosses." The table went silent. My mom shot me a look. My dad cleared his throat. Chloe just looked at her plate. Daniel, completely blindsided, just stammered, "Amelia, what are you talking about?" She laughed, a short, humorless sound. "You know exactly what I'm talking about. Don't pretend you don't judge me." Daniel tried to explain, tried to say he was worried about her, but she just got up from the table and went to help my mom in the kitchen, making it incredibly awkward for everyone. Later that night in bed, I tried to talk to her. "That was really unfair to Daniel, honey. He cares about you." She just turned away. "He doesn't care about me. He just likes to hear himself talk. And you always side with him. Always." It was becoming a pattern. Anyone who wasn't 100% on her side, no questions asked, was an enemy. Even me. My friends started to notice too. Julian especially. He'd occasionally say, "Is Amelia doing okay? She seems different lately." I'd brush it off. "Oh, just stressed with work." Or, "Yeah, she's had a lot on her plate." I was embarrassed, honestly, to admit how often we were fighting, or how frequently I felt like I was walking on eggshells. I rationalized it as, we're just going through a tough patch. Every couple has them. I genuinely believed if I could just be more supportive, more understanding, everything would go back to normal. If I could just anticipate her needs, avoid triggering her frustration, things would smooth out. I tried to convince myself that I was the problem, that I wasn't doing enough, that I was somehow failing her. Incident 3, the credit card. This one still makes my stomach churn. About 6 months ago, I noticed our joint checking account was running lower than usual. I checked the statement online and saw a series of charges from a luxury boutique I didn't recognize, and then a few larger withdrawals from an ATM near our house. We usually kept pretty good tabs on our spending, and these were definitely not our usual. I asked Amelia about them, casually. "Hey, did you pick up anything from La Belle Vie recently? And these ATM withdrawals, are those for something I'm forgetting?" She looked at me, completely blank. "What are you talking about? I haven't bought anything, and I haven't been to an ATM." I showed her the statement on my phone. She looked at it, her face going pale, then suddenly hardening. "Oh, that. Yeah, I forgot. I needed some new clothes for that client meeting, remember? And the cash was for a surprise I was planning for you." She looked away. Wouldn't meet my eyes. It felt like such a flimsy lie, but I just let it go. I wanted to believe her. I told myself she was just embarrassed, that she'd forgotten, that there was a perfectly reasonable explanation. I knew it wasn't right, though. Something in her eyes, that flicker of defensiveness, then anger. But what was I supposed to do? Accuse her? Of what? My internal struggle was constant. Maybe she just truly forgot. Maybe she was trying to surprise me. I found myself twisting logic, bending over backwards to avoid confronting the uncomfortable truth that was staring me in the face. It felt safer to just accept her explanation, to keep the peace. The tension, though, was always there. a low hum beneath the surface of our lives, constantly threatening to break through. And I was tired. So incredibly tired of holding it all together. The tension hummed beneath the surface of everything, a constant low thrum that was getting harder and harder to ignore. It finally broke about a month ago. A Tuesday, I remember, just after I'd gotten home from work. The house was quiet when I walked in, which was unusual. Amelia was usually in the kitchen or watching TV in the living room. I called out her name, but no answer. Figured she must be out running errands or something. I kicked off my shoes by the door, loosened my tie, and headed to the kitchen to grab a glass of water. That's when I saw it. On the kitchen counter, next to the mail pile that hadn't been sorted in days, was an envelope. A thick, official-looking envelope from a law firm I didn't recognize. Mitchell and Associates. My name was on it, but the address was our old apartment from before we bought the house, the one in Bolden Creek. That immediately struck me as odd. Why would a law firm send something to our old address? And why was it in our kitchen now? Amelia must have picked up the mail from there. My stomach tightened. That familiar, unwelcome clench. I picked up the envelope. It felt heavier than just a single letter. I flipped it over. The return address was definitely a law firm. And then I saw the small, almost imperceptible tear in the seal, as if someone had tried to open it, then thought better of it, and restuck it poorly. My heart started to pound. I don't know why, but a cold dread washed over me. This wasn't right. This wasn't a normal bill. This wasn't junk mail. With shaking hands, I carefully opened it the rest of the way. Inside, there wasn't one letter, but a stack. And as I started to read, my vision swam. The first page was a cover letter, brief and to the point. It was addressed to me, Kevin Miller, and it stated that the enclosed documents pertain to the finalization of a judgment against me in favor of a vendor named Evergreen Event Planning for unpaid services totaling just over $23,000. $23,000. My blood ran cold. Evergreen Event Planning. The name hit me like a physical blow. That was the company Amelia had used a year and a half ago to plan her cousin's engagement party. A massive, elaborate affair she'd insisted on throwing because her cousin, Ashley, was her best friend in the whole world. And Ashley's fiance, Ben, was family. I remember thinking at the time that it was a little over the top, and definitely too expensive for us. But Amelia had brushed my concerns aside, saying it was a gift, and she'd handle the payments. She'd made it seem like she was getting a discount, some special deal. I had given her access to a joint savings account, one we rarely touched, for the initial deposit, and then I hadn't thought about it again. We'd had other things going on, the house closing, my own work stress. I trusted her. My eyes darted to the other pages. A series of invoices, emails, collection notices, and then finally the judgment itself dated 3 months ago, stating that I, Kevin Miller, was liable for the full amount, plus legal fees, interest, and court costs. It detailed how numerous attempts to contact me at the address had gone unanswered, leading to a default judgment. It even mentioned a process server had left documents at the old apartment door, and presumably Amelia had just collected them and done nothing. Or worse, collected them and hidden them. My mind was reeling. $23,000. Unpaid. A judgment against me. How could this be? Why would Amelia do this? Why would she hide it? All the little things, the credit card incident, the defensiveness, the sudden anger, they all coalesced into a horrible, undeniable truth. She'd lied. Not just a little lie, but a massive, devastating lie that had now become my legal problem. My breath hitched in my throat. I felt physically sick, a wave of nausea washing over me. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the papers. I leaned against the counter, trying to breathe, trying to process. The distant hum of the neighbor's lawnmower was the only sound, absurdly normal in the face of my world crumbling. The front door opened then, and Amelia walked in, her arms laden with grocery bags. She looked up, saw me standing there, saw the papers in my hand. Her smile faltered. Her eyes widened, just for a split second, before she quickly masked it. She put the bags down on the floor, slowly. The sudden silence was deafening, except for the crinkle of the plastic bags. "What's that?" she asked, her voice too casual, too light. I couldn't speak. I just held the papers out, my arm trembling. My throat felt like it was closing up. I finally managed, "This? What is this, Amelia?" She walked over slowly, like she was approaching a wild animal. She glanced at the top page, her eyes scanning the letterhead. Then her face hardened, that familiar defensive look I'd come to dread. "Oh, that?" She wouldn't look at me. She picked up a box of cereal from one of the bags, unnecessarily. "Oh, that," I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. Then louder, "Amelia, this is a judgment for $23,000. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you pay them? What the hell is going on?" She turned to face me then, her eyes narrowed. "It's nothing. They're just trying to scare us. It's an old bill. I told them I wasn't paying it. They tried to overcharge us. It's fine." "Fine? Amelia, it's a legal judgment. They're suing me. This is not fine." I could feel the anger rising, hot and fast, eclipsing the shock. "How could you let it get this far? How could you hide this from me?" She threw the cereal box back into the bag, a sharp, angry gesture. "Why are you yelling at me? It's not my fault. They're the ones who are unreasonable. I told you, I was handling it. You just don't trust me, do you? Just like with Daniel, with Sharon, with everything." It was a complete deflection, a familiar tactic. She was turning it back on me, making me the villain. My brain was a chaotic mess of disbelief, fury, and a terrifying cold certainty that my entire marriage was built on a foundation of sand. I looked around the kitchen, the familiar space suddenly alien. The faint smell of fresh bread from the grocery bags, the afternoon sun streaming through the window, the cheerful magnets on the fridge. None of it felt real. This couldn't be happening. Not to us. Not after everything. But the papers in my hand were very real. The judgment was real. And Amelia, standing there, defiant, was very, very real. I felt a terrible, wrenching shift inside me. The trust, the fundamental belief in who she was, just shattered. The shattered trust felt like a physical pain in my chest. We stood there, glaring at each other, the air thick with everything unsaid, everything now brutally exposed. I didn't yell back. Not anymore. The fight went out of me, replaced by a cold, numbing horror. I just looked at her, really looked at her, and saw a stranger. "Get out," I said, my voice flat, almost devoid of emotion. "Just get out, Amelia." She scoffed, a short, sharp sound. "Get out?" "This is my house, Kevin. Where am I supposed to go?" "I don't care," I replied, the words a raw whisper. "Just go." "Or I will." She didn't move. She just stood there, arms crossed, defiant. It became a standoff. I eventually grabbed my car keys, the stack of legal papers, and my phone. I remember walking out the front door, the sun still bright, the neighbors' kids laughing down the street, and it felt completely surreal. My legs just moved on their own, taking me to my car, driving aimlessly for what felt like hours. I ended up pulling into a quiet park near Zilker, just sitting there, staring at nothing, trying to piece together the wreckage. The practical problems hit me almost immediately. The first thing I did, still in the park, was call my brother Daniel. He listened, silently at first, then with growing anger. "Kevin, you have to talk to a lawyer. Right now. This isn't just an unpaid bill. This is a judgment against you. This can mess up your credit. Everything." His words, though grim, were a lifeline. He told me to come to Houston, that I could stay with him and Chloe for as long as I needed. That night, I drove the 2.5 hours, arriving at their place around midnight, still numb. Chloe hugged me without saying a word, just a quiet, comforting squeeze. The next few weeks were a blur of legal consultations, the lawyer Daniel recommended. A kind but very direct man named Mr. Henderson confirmed my worst fears. The judgment was legitimate because it was sent to my last known address, which Amelia had access to, and because I hadn't responded, it was legally binding. My only recourse was to try and negotiate a payment plan or potentially file for bankruptcy, which would devastate my credit. $23,000 wasn't a small sum for us, especially with the mortgage and our other bills. We didn't have that kind of liquid cash just sitting around. Financially, it was a nightmare. I had to drain my modest emergency savings, the one I'd been building for years, just to make a dent in the initial payment. Amelia was still living in the house. When I went back a week later, accompanied by Daniel, to collect some clothes and my work laptop, she acted like nothing had happened. She even tried to hug me. "Kevin, honey, we can fix this. Just come home. We'll figure it out." She said it so casually, as if $23,000, a legal judgment, and a complete breach of trust were just a small bump in the road. I looked at her, and my resolve hardened. "You hid this, Amelia. You let them sue me. And you still think we can just figure it out? Like nothing happened?" "No." I packed my bag in silence, her attempts at conversation falling flat. She accused me of abandoning her, of overreacting, of letting Daniel poison my mind. It was a roller coaster of emotions. Anger, mostly, but also profound sadness. A deep, aching grief for the life I thought we had, for the person I thought she was. There was fear, too, about my financial future, about the house, about everything. And then, surprisingly, a sliver of relief. Relief that I wasn't constantly walking on eggshells anymore. That the tension was finally out in the open, however painful. The legal mess got worse. While Mr. Henderson was negotiating with Evergreen, another revelation dropped. I started digging through old financial statements, a morbid curiosity compelling me. I found several recurring charges from a few other places, small but consistent, that I couldn't explain. One was a monthly coaching service. Another was for an online gaming platform which Amelia never used. When I finally worked up the courage to confront her again, this time over the phone, she admitted to running up some personal expenses that she'd been meaning to pay off, that she'd just gotten a little behind. It wasn't the exact amount I'd found, and I knew she was still minimizing it, but it was enough to confirm that the problem was much deeper than just one event planning bill. It was a pattern, a series of deceptions I'd been blind to for far too long. The extent of the chaos she'd created, and the lies she'd woven to cover it, was staggering. I realized with a heavy heart that there was no recovery in the way I'd once hoped. There was only untangling and rebuilding from scratch. So that's where I am now, almost 2 months since I left the house. I'm still living with Daniel and Chloe, which I'm so incredibly grateful for, but also pretty ashamed of. I'm 36 years old, and I feel like I'm starting over like a college grad who just moved back home. My emergency fund is gone, eaten up by the initial payment to Evergreen Event Planning. Mr. Henderson is still negotiating a long-term payment plan, but the damage to my credit is already done. It's a huge blow, financially, one I didn't see coming. The house, our house, is still a major point of contention. Amelia is refusing to move out, refusing to sell. She still thinks we're going to fix things, or at least she says she does, but it just feels like another way to control the situation, to keep me tethered. We're in the early stages of discussing divorce with Mr. Henderson, and that's going to be another battle. I can already tell, especially with the judgment tied to my name. What I learned, it's not some grand, enlightened wisdom. It's more like a blunt, painful lesson in seeing what's really in front of you, even when it's uncomfortable. I let myself be blind for too long, choosing peace over truth. rationalizing away red flag after red flag because I loved her and because I hated confrontation. I was so invested in the idea of us that I ignored the reality of her. I realize now that my own desire for harmony, my tendency to avoid conflict, probably enabled a lot of this. I made excuses for her, convinced myself things weren't as bad as they seemed. And that's a hard pill to swallow, realizing your own role in allowing a bad situation to fester. This whole mess has definitely changed how I look at relationships. I don't think I can trust easily again, not for a long time. The thought of getting close to someone, of building a life with them, it just fills me with a cold dread. I still talk to my mom, but I haven't told her everything, not yet. It's hard to admit just how badly I messed up, how thoroughly I misjudged the person I married. I guess I'm sharing all this because I don't really know what else to do. My head is spinning most days. It helps to just get it all out, to see it written down. I'm just so tired, truly. I'm trying to keep my head up at work, trying to focus on rebuilding my life, but it feels like climbing a mountain with a huge weight on my back. Has anyone else been through something like this? How do you even begin to untangle a financial mess that wasn't your making, but is now entirely your responsibility? And how do you ever trust your own judgment again after something like this? It's all just so overwhelming. I don't know what comes next.